Many greetings, everyone listening into this presentation, and welcome to the second panel I am hosting during the Draconic Summit Summer 2024. I hope everyone has been enjoying the Draconic Summit so far. I really hope everyone has been enjoying the Draconic Summit so far. As many of you know, my name is Luunaathh, and I am your local Lyco-Draconic werewolf, who holds a deep spiritual connection with a divine, celestial draconian being who goes by the same name. During this presentation, I will be detailing an abridged core history of the early days of the online dragonkind community, and we'll be opening up discussion about how draconic experiences have changed over time and how they may develop in the future. The comprehensive list of draconic history I will be detailing in this panel mainly focuses on draconic community history on the internet after 1993. Since most of the draconic community history I have researched centers around draconic websites and spaces on the internet. If you wish to speak on this panel, when discussion is opened up, it is recommended that you write down what you wish to say during your time speaking. And again, as was advertised in the presentation title, I will begin this panel with sharing the abridged comprehensive draconic community history timeline I put together specifically for this presentation. Keep in mind that this is far, far from an exhaustive list or a complete dragonkind community history timeline. These pieces of community history are simply the most notable and/or documented. Before I begin, I wanted to say that after I detail this community history and when the discussion is opened up on stage, I would love it if others added on to my abridged timeline in this presentation by adding other sites and pieces of draconic history that I did not mention. Again, whether this may be on stage speaking during the discussion segment of this presentation, or whether you share such in the panel chat. With that out of the way, though, let us dive into the past of the draconic community. It is generally considered that the online dragonkind community began on December 1st, 1993, with the Usenet discussion group alt.fan.dragons, which was a discussion group meant for discussing dragons as a whole, dragon roleplay, and dragonkind identity, created by user Existing Phantom. It was a related site to its predecessor, alt.horror.werewolves, which was created on November 16th, 1992, which is considered to be the birthplace of the online Therian community. The site also went by other names such as AFD, Alfandria, Alfandra, and The Dominants. The discussion group was not solely a place to discuss draconic identity and being dragonkind. It was also for general discussion of dragons and for dragon roleplay. It was also for people interested in dragons and dragon riders. Actually, in 1997, a group of writers on alt.fan.dragons broke away from the website and created the Nexus Writing Group, since there was a lot of confusion on alt.fans.dragons as to which people were writers and which people were dragonkind identifying individuals. Sadly, as of February 22nd, 2024, Google Groups stopped accepting new responses, ending an era of draconic community discussion. On January 5th, 1995, the first comprehensive dragon code, made by user Red Dragon, was created on alt.fan.dragons. The dragon code is a type of internet code meant to describe certain details about an individual's draconity within said code. It was taken over by Bakil on August 25th, 1995, who then turned over the dragon code to Worm, WYRM, on June 19th, 1999. The dragon code has been revised a few different times over the past, almost 3 decades. There is a related and more common geek code used on the internet called the Furry Code, which is a geek code used to describe the characteristics of someone's fursona. The original dragon code is still used by some members in the draconic communities today, though it's not used as often as it was in the past. On August 7th, 1996, the original incarnation of the website Dragonfire was created. It was created as a related website to alt.fan.dragons with the purpose of documenting resources surrounding draconic experience and providing general information about being dragonkind. The site also features literature, games, and artwork. There's also a general history of alt.fan.dragons on the site, and features links to spaces related to alt.fan.dragons, such as their live journal group. It is considered one of the oldest Draconic-themed websites on the internet, and sadly only exists in the form of an archive on the Wayback Machine. In 1996, worm.co.uk was created and archived on the Wayback Machine. The site features links to the websites of some dragonkind identifying individuals, and has an extensive list of over 70 different types of dragons featured in the mythologies of many different European cultures. On January 1st, 1998, the Muck website Alfandria was created as an extension of alt.fan.dragons. It served as both a roleplay site and a site for the general discussion of Draconidy and being dragonkind. You could connect to the website via Telnet or an MU client, which really does reveal the website's age. The original site is still up today, surprisingly. On April 1st, 1998, Bakil wrote the article 40-Foot Winged Dragons Need Your Love Too, which is an April Fool's article that spoke out against the supposed dehumanization of dragons by humanity. It is an interesting little piece of dragonkind community history, and also a funny little joke piece. On January 11th, 1998, the Draconic.com website was created by Connie S., which is an internet forum centered around the discussion of the dragonkind experience. The forum also has resources about Draconidy linked onto the site. The site is still up and running today, which is one of the only otherkin spaces from the 1990s still up on its original site domain, though it has largely become inactive, and mainly serves as an archive now. On October 11th, 1998, Bakil created the Draconidy FAQ, with its purpose being a comprehensive resource answering common questions surrounding Draconidy and being dragonkind, with the goal of helping questioning dragonkin and answering general questions about the concept of being dragonkind. It was later moved to the Tomorrowland's website in the year 2000. In January 1st, 1999, the first recorded Yahoo group centered around Draconidy was created, named Real Dragon. The group was described as a mailing list for all manner of Draconic identifying individuals. There have been more than a few early 2000s Yahoo groups surrounding Draconidy and the Draconic experience, though it would take too long to mention every single one of them. So I will refrain from doing so for the sake of, maintaining a proper, shorter panel time. On April 26, 2001, the website Nexus Draconis was created as a German-speaking dragonkind group, with Draconidy resources translated to German by, I'm probably going to butcher this name though, Patarchus Stormwind. On August 3rd, 2001, Alfandria created a page on LiveJournal, with its purpose being for Draconic identifying individuals to discuss the Draconic experience on the LiveJournal website. I think it also served as a news group, though don't quote my being on that. In 2003, the website Draconomicon was created by Sargoth. The site serves as a space for Draconic identifying individuals and dragon lovers alike. The site featured a forum, resources, journals, and other features common on early 2000s forums and sites. In May 2003, Draconidy.org was created by Sargoth as a recreation of Draconomicon.com. The site serves as a forum to discuss topics relating to dragons, though mainly topics relating to being dragonkind. The site is still active today under a new version of the site by its new owner Celeroth, and has an active Discord server. That server, again, being active today. In March of 2004, the LiveJournal groups Draconics and We Are Dragon were created. On the same day, actually, for Draconic identifying individuals and dragon lovers alike. In January 2005, the earliest recorded instance of a Wikipedia article on Draconidy, and perhaps otherkinity in general, was created, mentioning Draconic identity. The article described dragonkin as, quote, people who believe themselves to be a dragon in a biological, psychological, and/or a spiritual sense. And in December of 2006, the earliest recorded newspaper article surrounding Draconidy was written by the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, though this article is listed. Yeah, this instances listed on the Wikipedia page for Otherkin, though no known scan or photo of this article exists. The only place it's documented on is, again, the Wikipedia page and House of Chimera's comprehensive Dragonkin community history. Sadly, there is not much information surrounding the Dragonkind community after 2011 and 2014. Though everything I mentioned before are the main aspects of the Draconic community history that I think are most notable. Sadly, again, there isn't much documentation about Draconic and Otherkin community history past 2011 to 2014, mainly because archiving those spaces just wasn't seen as important. And nowadays, it's also very difficult to keep up with new Draconic spaces and new Otherkin spaces because there's just so many being created. I would applaud any attempt to expand on community history that way, though. And again, the newspaper was the Minneapolis Star-Tribune for that article. See, I lost my place. Looking at these sites and looking at Draconic spaces in the present day, it is clear that much has changed within the Draconic communities as time has gone on. And it is actually a little bit somber looking at old Draconic community history. Well, one, knowing that many of these sites no longer exist, though two, I personally miss the old internet. And yeah, I miss the old internet. It's sad that it is gone. Though, at least we can find some solace in the fact that these spaces and sites have been recorded for future generations. And again, it is clear that much has changed within the Draconic communities as time has gone on. The Draconic, yeah, as the internet has changed, so have experiences within the Draconic community. Many individuals who have experienced the older days of the Draconic community state that they miss how the community used to be, citing that the community used to be more tight-knit, introspective, and took their identities more seriously than communities today. Again, it is often argued by some members of the community that introspection took place much more in the older days of the community, and that many individuals took their identities more seriously. I don't necessarily understand the latter, mainly because Otherkind identity has become more broad and more ways to experience Otherkind identity have been made known and have become more accepted, it doesn't mean that no one does proper introspection anymore. And it doesn't mean that no one takes their identity seriously anymore. Though it's whatever, I suppose. It's just a common view among some older members of the community. Yeah. Old day community forums have become inactive and have instead been replaced by fast-paced Discord servers and Telegram chat rooms, which make up the majority of Otherkin spaces nowadays. In a lot of ways, forums allowed for easier and deeper discussion than Discord servers, since individuals could take all the time they need to respond to threads and discussions, and they could return to discussion at any given time. Discussions in Discord servers get buried over time since everything is fast-paced, and there is a lot more social pressure to respond to conversations quickly. There's also a certain stigma about reviving older conversations for some reason, which I never understood, though I guess it's just an unspoken internet rule. Yeah, Discord servers get buried over time, sadly, and conversation topics can change at any given time, which can be upsetting for individuals who were looking forward to contributing to a certain conversation, and yeah. Discord servers and Telegram chats are bad, obviously, though at the same time, I can't understand why others prefer forums over modern chat rooms, for the reasons I mentioned earlier. My early days in the Otherkind community personally weren't in forums or chat rooms, rather they were on old Otherkin DeviantArt groups, and old Otherkin-related posts on DeviantArt from 2011 to 2015, where discussions were very limited. I don't have many comments on the earlier days of the community other than I do miss the general atmosphere of the old internet, and I admittedly do wish I could have been around during the very early days of the Otherkind community on the internet. I also really do miss forums and the atmosphere of many forums. It is true that we can just simply go back to forums, though many forums have become inactive, and on many forums, since they are so active, inactive, I mean, I wish they were active. There's just not much avenue to discuss as the way things used to be. Obviously, some things in the other kind community have changed for the better, though it is still sad to know that the old days have disappeared, though that's just my being looking at everything through rose-tinted glasses. That is actually all that I have written on my script, so I will go ahead and open stage discussion about Draconic community history and how Draconic experiences have changed over time. I would actually appreciate some input from members who have experienced the alter human community like pre 2008, mainly because I don't know much about experiences in that time frame of the community, mainly because of the human body's age. And I'm just generally interested in the history of the other kind community. So I would appreciate some input from, again, I would appreciate an input from individuals who have been in the community pre 2008. I will go ahead and read the chat room now while I am waiting for peeps to speak on stage. Hello.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I do have some experience before 2008. Unfortunately, I joined the community around 2007, so it was a tail end of that era. But before social media consumed everything, everybody built their own little websites that link around in a circle. I think they called them web rings, and it's just fascinating to actually see brain or thought dumps of other other dragons being just out there and up for discovery. It feels like uh, the old ages where people were just journeying randomly around the internet, and then suddenly you find a gold mine and you spend hours just reading this one guy's site. I do miss the old internet being able to explore everywhere like that.
Yeah, I can understand that completely.
I think though my most favorite discovery was like Jafira's Dragonkin guide back in 2007. It was I think it was a PDF back in the day, and it I read that cover to cover and then read it like twice, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. It's just the amount being so hard to find is also a feature because it's like exploring. That's sort of the thing. I'm sorry. I just trying to struggle recalling stuff from like that time. Unfortunately, I
No
also
worries.
have joined a couple forums. Yeah, those were good. Some of them were kind of badly run, unfortunately. But uh, I just I just miss the old internet. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I understand that completely.
But yeah. Anyway, anyone else want to go on?
Yee.
It just sucks that the modern internet is just like I don't know. The meme goes four websites with screenshots of the other three. But anyway, I digress. Time for me to jump off the stage and let other people speak.
Cookies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
I really love this. I love this summit. By the way.
Yay,
Hi.
that's good. It's good to hear.
Like Doppel, I was a little on the late side because although I was around since 2001, I was active in alt.fan.dragons and draconmicon.com, but only actually learned about the muck closer to around 2006 or 2007-ish. But I was around to see the very tail end of the golden era of it. Uh, I was quite literally present as Sargoth stepped down from draconmicon.com and handed it over to, uh, uh, come on, my brain's failing me, Selroth, and it became draconi.org. Draconic.org is still up and running. It's being managed by Selroth now. I've actually met online existing Phantom, really nice dragon. But overall, the muck and the Usenet were quite something. This was in an earlier conversation, but just to give an idea of how old this was, even back then we had issues with bots, and to mislead them, alt.fan.dragon's description was that we were fans of automobiles in a certain place, and it was just a joke because they are called dragons. And we always knew whether or not it was a spam bot because if anybody posted about anything to do with cars, we just immediately blocked them from the mailing
Ah,
list. But the entertaining part about it is quite a handful of folks are from there. I actually have quite a large group of friends that are from roughly around that era. We all kind of just hide under our own little rocks, but the big thing is there is a big loss these days. Everything with being boiled down to major websites has completely shattered the way the communities used to be built. At best, I can say I myself know that I, as one of the oldies, am in now 4 hidden communities that aren't even advertised because if we open the doors, we just get buried by a whole bunch of modern stuff.
mm,
So we all just kinda hide like a whole bunch of seniors in a old folks home, but
I see.
we do still exist. I'm in my, mid-30s myself right now, and a lot of the other members of the, community are 40 or older, but, even still, I still feel like the young one. It feels strange calling myself an old wine. We used to go by the fruitiness, and for the longest time, my profile used to always say that, I was, uh, just a little nutty or something like that. And now I have to accept that I'm an old wine. But posted in the chat earlier. We used to even actually keep an obituary in a place called the Statue of the Unknown Dragon. It's much like the Statue of the Unknown Soldier in Canada, in which we actually kept entries of every single dragonkin that passed away.
Oh, wow.
That archive, if we can find it, I'm hoping that one of us will be able to get a hold of Worm and let him know that the page is gone. But Worm did archive it at one point, but it had a lot of entries. I remember the browser would load up and it would tell me that there was like 60 something pages of it.
Ah, I see.
Uh, I don't know if there's any questions that anybody wants to ask from somebody who's familiar with that era, but I can answer any quick questions before I drop out.
Understandable. I do want to say that I really appreciate you sharing your input, and I actually didn't know that thing about the statue of the unknown dragon. If there is gonna, if you or anyone else does find an archive of it, I would love to get my claws on it, mainly because I have an entire comprehensive Alter Human resources page on my Dreamwidth that I'm trying to make a complete list. So any and all sources of Alter Human spaces, resources, and sites and archives would be appreciated.
If it helps, I did post in the chat there the link. It's wormnet.org.uk/status/index dot or sorry /statue/index.html.
Ah,
If
okay.
somebody wants to wayback surf, if you can find the entry, please let us know.
Yeah, definitely, and I'll add that onto the that link onto the comprehensive history.
And Tease, I see that yeah, you mentioned that you've been around there since basically the beginning. I don't know if you want to voice or not, but if you want to provide anything in the chat, that'd be great. Because honestly, you know even more than I do. It's a shame that Telenus and Existing Phantom aren't here, because both of those two also know a lot.
Yeah, someone should invite them to the summit one of these days.
It'd be awesome if I can get them to move. It's both of them kind of shy away and hide.
Ah, fair enough.
Both are very polite and amazing people, though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, Tease wanted to say yes. Alphandrya is a focused MU star, otherwise known as a Muck, Mush, or Moo. Uh, MUDs were a popular form of gaming back in the day where it was a text-based adventure. Think about those like choose your own adventure storybooks, except this was a actually online system where you would basically dungeon crawl Diablo style, but it was entirely done by text. Although the MUDs were a popular gaming solution, a bunch of us otherkin looked at it and went, "We can turn this into a living world." So we ripped out all the video game mechanics out of it and made what is called a muck, a multi-user shared kingdom, or sorry, multi-user created kingdom. There we go. And the way a muck functions is quite literally all users are builders, meaning every single user has the ability to build onto the world. You create rooms, objects, you write descriptions for them, and you can detail out everything as deep as you want. And you can even write some basic scripting into it to accomplish all kinds of things. Alphandrya is still running if anybody is vaguely familiar with their way around a console, or if they want to install a third party Muck client, they can certainly jump on there. But with guest access, you'll be a bit limited, but you'll still be able to look around the place and see things. For instance, one of the very few things I made was I'm normally my normal dragon self there in Alphandrya Muck, but I have the plushy Dav costume, and if I use it, I automatically become an object, meaning other players can pick me up and carry me around as if I'm an inventory item, and I can still talk to them while an inventory item.
It's interesting.
It was very fun because I'd always find myself in the strangest places when I'd go to sleep, which was the other interesting mechanic. Most of the things online, you know how you just disappear when you disconnect? Mucks, you fall asleep. Your character stays where you last were and everybody can see you.
Ah, interesting.
So I would fall asleep as a plush toy and people would just see me as an object in a room and pick me up.
Oh, wow.
Uh, there's all kinds of other shenanigans, but I will save that for later because I don't want to just take up everybody's time here. But I'll hang around and be around for the voice chat afterwards.
Yee, that's understandable. Thank you so much for sharing. I really do appreciate all the input.
Oh, you're most welcome. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer anything that I can.
Okay.
All right. So I personally am not from the community pre 2000s, but I wanted to say, for one, I'd like to thank Luunaathh personally for hosting this panel. It's so important to preserve the history of our community, and I really respect a lot of the work that is put in by our archivists to make sure that this information is always accessible for members young and old. As someone whose like academic concentration is within cultural studies, I cannot stress enough how critical it is to bring attention to such information and just to share it as much as you can. Um, and then for two, I harped on it before in the panel discussion, but the Alter Human Archive is such an incredible resource for those who want to learn more about our history from the voices of both our members today and our gray muzzles in the community as well. A lot of different resources for dragonkind and other non human individuals alike can be found through this resource. And not only can you pull from different web pages, documents, and the like, but you can actually submit some of your own content to the archive and build upon that information yourself. And in a way, you are also becoming a part of the community and its cultural background by contributing your work to the archive. I know Lunat mentioned earlier about learning about our spaces before the 2000s, and from my experience deep diving in the archive from time to time, there are like a lot of archived accounts from like the 1990s, from like 1996, 1997, 1999. There's just a whole lot of archived work from a lot of people like across our community, some of which being Bakil's work I've seen in the archive from time to time. And I feel like that above all else is something that is also crucial when it comes to our history, is not just making sure we have a lot of our events and our beats in order, but also being able to be in touch with a lot of the accounts from members of our community all the same. I also remember earlier, Doppel had discussed the creation of sites, and it reminded me of this panel I went to at the Centaurus Festival this January. For those who don't know, the Centaurus Festival is a online alter human um, convention that was created not too long ago, actually. For those who are Mythkin, Mythic, Folk, and Terra, what have you. And there was a panel that discussed Mythkin and Mythic history through websites in the old internet. And there was a handful of archivists who actually attended the panel and like discussed in the panel actually, and provided us a lot of guidance about continuing the tradition of building websites through platforms like NeoCities and practicing um, a lot of practices in our community like wear cards and web rings. And I just thought it was just so incredible. I had saved so much stuff from that panel. Um, and I had actually got up during that same weekend in which the convention took place and made a NeoCities of my own to archive my work out of inspiration. And if there is anything that I can take from both this panel, that panel, and our history overall, is that your voice is important, even though you may feel like it's just a stream of conscious or just passing thoughts about how you exist as an individual. It is so important to make sure your voice is recorded, essentially. Now, of course, that doesn't mean every single thing needs to be recorded if you don't feel comfortable putting down certain things on paper. That's natural. But when it comes to just your experience as an individual who is not human or partially human in some individuals' experience, it's still so essential to have that on record. Life is so short, and who knows who will be there to remember who you are and to tell your story the way you would see fit. And so I really think these practices from our past are still worth continuing and protecting as we go forth. Um, I'll personally try to see if I can find the links to like the NeoCities web page as well as some of the web rings that were shared during my experience with the Centaurus Festival um, in the chat. And if not, I'll just share what I can either way. I know earlier I had shared a link to specifically the Draconic archive from the Ultra Human archive within the chat, but I can always resend it if anyone needs. And that's basically the gist of what I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's understandable. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. And
No
yeah, I would
problem.
appreciate that Draconic archive thing on the Alter Human archive so I can just add to the resource list that I have on my Dreamwidth.
Sure, I can resend that in just a moment.
Okay. If anyone else wants to come up on stage, feel free to. And I'm actually going to link the resource thing that I created for the other kind the wider Alter Human community actually right here on my Dreamwidth. I have hundreds of websites and resources on there. A lot of that list is made from hundreds and hundreds of hours of extensive research and looking up things on the Wayback Machine. It's a ton of work, though. I'm happy I was able to make that space. I mean, a resource. And it was actually during the making of this resource that I found a lot of the older resources that I mentioned here in the panel. And again, if anyone else wants to come up and speak on stage, feel free to. I actually found the alt.horror.werewolvescore FAQ while looking for that. While looking for everything on the Otherkin archive that I made. Actually, I have an early history of alt.fan.dragons. See, I can actually read this. This is from the archive of the dragonfire.org website, and I believe it hasn't been updated since the 90s, so, I mean, this specific article. So I can go ahead and read off of that. See, back in 1992, before the existence of the World Wide Web, when all that internet junkies had to keep themselves entertained, or email, telnet, FTP sites, Gulfer just starting to appear, listservs, Usenet News, and the occasion game of Empire I was and still am a big dragon fan who loved collecting anything with dragons in it. Trouble was that dragon info and images were few and very hard to find on the internet at that time. Search engines were in their infancy and could only search on file names of FTP sites. You were lucky to find a new dragon resource, usually of a single GIF image, once every 3 months. I began to pull all the dragon files I found into one FTP site called IceCube. Thus, the first strictly dragon internet resource was born. Not very many people knew about it or used it, but that was okay. Being a starving dragon fan in a dragonless internet, I wondered if there were any other dragon fans out there. Interrupting that, it is actually interesting to my being that at the start of the internet, there were so few dragon images to begin with, or anything related to dragons. Continuing on the article, though, which is written by Existing Phantom, by the way. So I started posting to Usenet fantasy groups, asking if there was any interest in creating a dragon-related Usenet group. To my surprise, over several months, I received 7 replies back stating interest. So I started the news group creation process. Alt.fan.dragons is an unmoderated forum for the posting of any and all topics relating to dragons, as well as opinion, discussion, stories, and poetry about any aspect of dragons. The discussion is not restricted to any single author's or individual's views on dragons' life cycles or behavior, but is a free discussion on any aspect or ideas put forth about them. AFD came into being on December 1st of 1993. The first 2 months of alt.fan.dragons received about 3 posts a week. There were no dragons in the group then. It contained mostly technical discussions with the occasional poem. Around July of 1994, things started picking up. We were getting 7 to 10 posts a week. Then November rolled around, and this guy called Blackburn and several others started showing up and started claiming they were dragons. Before then, AFD was mainly a technical discussion group. What most people do not know is that I was fearful that semi-off-topic, though not too off-topic if you read the above description, posts would cause the few people we had posting to the group to stop posting, and that the group would dry up and die off. I tried to discourage such posts by trying to change the topic back to technical discussions. I failed miserably. For 2.5 months, I tried changing the topic to technical discussion. The first month, I was so successful. The second month, there were pies being thrown everywhere, and no one was getting into any technical discussion. Halfway through the third month, a light bulb swung and hit me upside of the head. In July, we were getting 7 posts a week now. In December, 1 year after it started, we were getting 15 to 20 posts a day. Everyone was enjoying themselves and having fun. There weren't any flame fests going on. AFD was growing in population quickly and wasn't going to die off as an unused news group. I saw the tidal wave of, in quotes, delicious cream pies rising before me and decided to stop trying to swing against it and just surf with the flow. Shortly thereafter, Dalnet was created by Dalvenja Foxfire, aka Sven Nielsen. The World Wide Web sprouted into being, and the wonderful world of AFD bloomed like a wildfire. The land of AFD was first called the Dominants. Then someone came off with the wonderful term Alfandra, and it has stuck like peanut butter in a banana pie ever since. I haven't been active with the news group in quite a while. The reason has nothing to do with any of the above. I'm still a big dragon fan as I ever was. However, I no longer have time. I used to read AFD on a regular basis, but I do pop in every 6 months or so to see what's happening. I miss you guys, Grauf. This is the history as I am aware in a nutshell. Thus spake the old fruit. And that's the end of the early history of AFD on the Dragonfire website. I'm honestly very glad that dragonfire.org was preserved and a lot of this information. Let's see, while we're at it, I guess we can read 40-foot winged reptiles need your love too. Again, 40-foot winged reptiles need your 2 is an April Fool's piece created by Bakil, which, quote, speaks out for belief, tolerance, and the crusade against society's dehumanization. And keep in mind that this article is a joke article. It's not meant to be taken seriously. I've been silent on it for too long, and the time has come for me to tell the world I am a dragon. Oh, not physically, not now. I don't have scales or wings any more than you do. Long decades ago, I chose to assume the form of a human in order to better study your society. I move among you, silent, unseen, and elusive, sort of like a ninja or spy master. Except generally those guys have some sort of secret nefarious plot to follow and consequently know what they're doing. To avoid suspicion, I was born and grew up like every other normal child. This quickly led to a string of educational triumphs, mishaps. Hold on. Oh, goody. I found a virus from clicking on one of the archive sites. Lovely. Oh well. Moving on. Yeah. To avoid suspicion, I was born and grew up like every other normal child. This quickly led to a string of educational triumphs, mishaps, and tragedies, a piece of paper certifying that even a hibernating lizard can graduate from high school, and an invitation to one of California's most excellent and diverse universities. Unfortunately, the Secret Service threw a fit when they find out I'd only be 2 buildings down from Chelsea. Some myths about dragons and young ladies die hard, so I came to UCSB instead. I ended up gravitating toward the press, which after all is a very natural place to be if you want to observe society. No two conspiracy theorists. There is absolutely no evidence of any kind to support a dragon media takeover hypothesis. Now go find it. The lessons I've learned over my years here as a UCSB student and a Nexus staffer have been invaluable. And I am revealing the truth about my draconity now because it's critical that we all come to an understanding before the changes hit, that human society know about, and ready to be accept dragons when we return and offer our claw in peace. This is all well and good, I can hear you saying now, but dragons don't exist. Don't tell me. Let me guess, you've never seen one before. Oh, of course, ultimately it's not about that, right? After all, nobody you know has ever seen one either, and nobody has proved to general satisfaction that they're here. So the great mass of the human world goes about their business, having thrown the burden of proof to the dragon and happily lives in ignorance. The great problem here is that it's not really to the dragon's advantage to demonstrate its existence. Western culture, practically since its inception, seems to have found the singular aim of not merely oppressing, but outright destroying dragons wherever they be found. Anyone remember Beowulf? What did we ever do to him? And Terence and the Maiden were getting along just fine before Saint in quotes, George decided to play soldier boy. Even with the growing cultural sensitivity of the 20th century, it has not significantly improved. If any of us were to reveal ourselves to you in dragon form, we'd suddenly be the object of national attention. Curiosity seekers wouldn't even be the worst, between the religious nuts and the crazed biologists storming down our doors. I doubt we'd last the day, so we continue to hide or sneak around in the shadows as we've always done, and to gradually prepare for the world, for the day when we walk the earth again, free of fear. Not, I should point out, free of fear like T-Rex must have been in his day. We are not rulers, nor do we mean to hold humanity under our claw. All we ask is coexistence, tolerance, perhaps even in time love. Is that so different from what the rest of you want? Can anyone rightfully expect more than be treated as equal? Yes, you there, the skeptic in the back? Maybe you didn't hear me. Dragons don't exist. Oh, of course, silly me. How stupid of me to not heed the wisdom of a civilization that spends more money on jails than on schools. Allow me to digress for a moment. I noticed a few days that McDonald's signs, which once advertised how many burgers they'd collectively flipped, now simply read billions and billions served. Now, as university students, we are all already used to being simply numbered cogs in the wheels of education. But this new trend is even more disturbing. They're not even going to give us the benefit of a number anymore. It used to be that even simply by eating a burger, you could be one of an elite 60 40 million or 780 million or 1 billion in McDonald's case. And they've given up even that pretense now. We're just becoming just anonymous drops of water in the tidal surge of progress. To follow up on that point, ignore for a moment whether dragons truly exist. We do. Or even possible, we are. This is an issue of identity and personal pride. If you deny my draconity, you are writing me off as just one of the crowd. And even if such relative oddities as dragons are part of the faceless masses, what hope is there for humanity to lift itself out of anonymity? We all, human or dragon otherwise, have to stand up and be proud of who we are. All of us have the drive to rise above the crowd. The only way we're going to get there is by working together, building on each other's identities, deriving strength from our differences, and standing out in our own ways. And I am proud to be a dragon. Every time I sleep, crazy hours, and believe me, I hibernate when I sleep. Add another book to my hoard, or feel my shoulder blades itch when I stare from the window of tall buildings. I am quietly celebrating my heritage. Well, first take note that the history is written by the dragon slayers, and xenophobia made kidnapping a logical lie. Those maidens were there because they wanted to be, and as for what they did, well, let's just say that, like me, there have always been people working to bring the two species closer together. Bakil, pronounced Bakil, is the Daily Nexus copy dragon. And that's the end of that. I'm gonna have to be more careful on the Alter Human archive now because, like I mentioned before, I got viruses from clicking on a site, so lovely. Gotta take care of that now. I'll go ahead and look at the chat though on my phone while I'm resolving this virus issue. It's my own fault though for being ridiculous. And again, if anyone wants to come up on stage and speak, then feel free to. I'm a little quiet because I'm admittedly distracted with this virus thing, which is really not anyone's fault other than my own.
Ooh, I get a stage again. Nice.
Hello.
Mic check. Is it working?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad the tweaks are working. Um, so first I want to say really loving this panel here. I like hearing a lot of people's stories about their experiences with the growth of the community. Um, I know I've talked about my personal journey, but I don't think I've ever talked about the communities I was involved with when I was getting into it. Um, People might have heard this in the chat earlier, but when I was younger, after I had gone through reading books, I reached a point when I was in high school where I was like, well, I really want to draw and share my art. And I started getting onto a site called DeviantArt. And I didn't know what I was doing at first. I just, posted a couple drawings here and there. But then I started learning about some of the features, and there were DeviantArt groups out there. Naturally, the first thing I did was type in the word dragons and hit enter looking for groups. Um, Gosh, actually, I wonder if I try to log in to my old account, if I can still get in there. Do I still have? Oh, I think I had the password and everything saved on my manager. Um, oh gosh, this is a old profile. So, just jogging my memory real quick. Now my memory is a little hazy because this was, in the 90s. So, help me out or take it with a grain of salt in case I'm wrong. Um, but if I remember correctly, I ended up joining a small number of dragon communities. Now, back then, I didn't know what an otherkin was. Um, Back then, I was in uh, back then I was in a household where I was trying to be like a little goody two shoes, but I really liked dragons, and I ended up in a group called, I think it was called Christian Dragons. Yes, I was a little bit of a Christian when I was younger. Don't need to get into that because that's not the subject matter here, but that was my first interaction with the dragon community. I ended up getting involved with a few other groups that were on DeviantArt as well. And I remember there was a small cult following, a wave, so to speak, of people getting interested in an artist on there who was writing a story called Dracozine. Really cool set of chapters. They were all continuously written as he wrote their story. Really cool piece of history that was on DeviantArt. I hope it's still on there somewhere or on the Wayback Machine somewhere because that was a really good story. If you haven't heard about it, it could be worth giving it a read. Um, let's see. When was my first actual run in with understanding what other kin was? I would say yes. I don't know about Dracozine Divulgence, but that might be it. But Stralky is definitely the author of it. No, Divulgence seems a little too recent. Because that was from 2016. Oh, actually, wait a second. No, that was a bit too recent. The one that I read was actually back in the late 2000s to the early 2010s. Um, let's see. I didn't exactly hop up on stage with like notes or anything, but I figured that I'd at least help fill in the silence with some of my experiences. If I remember afterward, I know I ended up getting more involved with the furry community for a little while after that, for maybe even a few years. Because I know when I got into the military, I was still super interested in dragons, still reaching out, but it was mostly Skype. Actually, I was getting involved with Skype groups because that was starting to become a thing. The That was the around the dawn of the whole instant messaging age instead of just being on forums. I also remember that there was a small group on Gaia Online that did dragon stuff, and I remember role playing on there. Oh, that's right. I did a lot of role playing back then too. There's several role playing sites, some that are still going to this day, I bet, but I'd have to double check that to be sure. Let me scroll down a little bit to see. E621. Oh my gosh. I think the weirdest thing about all this, of all the sites that I've perused around, E621 has been one of those sites that I never actually really got involved in. For one reason or another. Just never got around to it, I guess. Oh. Um, I remember that after Skype started having their own issues, I think that's around the time things started evolving into Telegram and Discord, and things started looking a lot more like we see it today. Yeah, like when Skype was new, it was pretty nice. It felt like it was ahead of its time, but then the cracks quickly started to show when other people started doing it better. Also, it was around the time they got bought out, but that's besides the point. That great minds think alike. I can see someone was thinking the exact same thing. Oh, actually, and well, this might be a little personal, but since I'm here, I remember another. Oh, there was actually a site. I think it was like Tail Sanctuary or something like that. That was like an online forum, and they existed. They technically are still around today. I wouldn't be surprised if they are on Discord or Telegram at this point, though. But I think they still have their main website the same way that Draconic.org does. And I remember hanging out around with people there too, and I think some of them were kin. And I believe that thanks to some of the connections I made there, that's around the time that I actually started learning about other kin and what it was and these communities that I'm a part of now. It was really weird. Like it was staring me in the face for quite a long time, but it always eluded me. It I do kind of feel a little sad that if I had figured all this out sooner, I probably could have been a more active participant in all this history.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yep. Trying to. I wish I had more off the top of my head. Being somebody who grew up in the 90s and then the 2000s, I you'd think that I would have a lot more to go off of. I did actually spend time in forums other than the things that I've listed so far. But unfortunately, because I was not good at keeping records, I have forgotten a lot of what I've done in the past, and I feel really bad about it.
Understandable.
And maybe it's for that reason why it's so important for some of us who are savvy with the sort of thing to be keeping records of places that have been. Kind of helps the rest of us remember. So I do want to say that for those of us who are keeping tabs, thank you for doing all that. The half-life of an average kin site. Half-life of the average kin site. That would be an interesting piece of data to look at. Not gonna lie to you, seeing the Fox News label next to the headline, I find a little scary. I think it's really cool that it's been an inspiration for you though. Everyone's reaction's about the same as mine. What?
See, I gotta deal with these damn viruses, so if no one else has anything else to add, I will go ahead and end the panel.
Sounds good. Thank you for letting me hop on.
Of course. Okay, with that, thank you everyone for attending this panel. It is much appreciated. I enjoyed documenting the community history and I enjoyed having this discussion. I really appreciate everyone listening and I hope to see you all later at the other panels at the summit.